I've been very busy during the last few years trying to build up Ecosia, and for some reason I never really had the time to just take 2 weeks off and go to one of our projects. Peter, our tree planting officer, he was in charge of doing that, so it was also not really necessary for me to go there. It was really impressive to see the trees in the ground, pretty much. And I started realizing, wow, there are hundreds of families involved in this, and it actually takes days, if not months, to travel between these families. And of course, you really understand the situation on the ground, which you never can if you're just looking at it from videos or just reading project proposals or something like that. You really feel much more connected to a project, which is it's really good. I think the things that I learned were I started understanding much more what the people on the ground really need and what their lives look like and what they want us to do, because it's really easy to come with a outside perspective and say, yeah, you need to do this, you need to plant these trees because they are good for the climate or something like that, but it might be absolutely not what they're interested in. I think that was really getting a good understanding because these people, in the end, they need to make money, they need to send their children to school, and that we need to take that into account. And being there, it was really, I felt that we need to give them business opportunities, otherwise it doesn't make sense for us to plant trees. And of course I always understood this at an intellectual level, but really driving through palm oil plantations and understanding that the people who planted them are not evil people, they just had these needs, economic needs, and that's why they had to do it, and we need to give them better alternatives to planting palm oil plantations. When we came to our project site, we had to drive for a very long time by car through these palm oil plantations, and that was very impressive in a negative way, because it's really different to see these pictures in TV, but really driving through that and just seeing how this green desert, pretty much just all the same trees in the same patterns. There's no bird singing. There's no the soil is completely destroyed. It really feels like hell. But then what was really such a drastic change when we then came into the areas where the palm oil plantations haven't really reached, and we made it into the villages, it was noticeable how the temperatures dropped really by a few degrees. The climate was just so much better. You saw people on the streets, you saw children running by, you heard birds, and you had these beautiful forests. And so really this change for me was it made it very obvious what we're trying to protect. I think even more impressive was when we spent a few days in paradise already, because these were villages. They at some point during the last 200 years, they cut down a few trees around their villages, so it was not really the primary rainforest there, it was more secondary forests, a few trees standing around, still beautiful, but it's not really pure rainforest. And then once we really went into a rainforest, and then again you had another temperature drop, and it again felt even better, because you just had pure nature and pure, you had rivers floating by with pure water. So this was really, again, a very drastic difference to what we had before. So you went from hell to good paradise, and then to something that is really, really the forest of Eden or something like that. Yeah. I think in your daily job you can just forget what it really means to plant these trees. So I think it's important that people go there, associate images, real images, and connections to people with these trees that we plant. So yeah, I think it's good that we have the chance to do that. For me it was really motivating because I saw what kind of impact we had, but I also saw the scale of the problem. because we've been driving for hours and hours through palm oil plantations, and what we're doing is really great, but it's just such a small part, and we need to just make this much bigger. Especially in Indonesia, there's so much forest, and the forest itself doesn't really have value to people, so we really need to find ways to bring value to the forest. We really need to find business models, otherwise people just can't afford to protect these forests. I hope that in our project side, the people are still living in these beautiful villages, surrounded by beautiful forests, and that in addition to that, they're making good money out of the trees that they've planted, so that they can actually afford to protect this precious landscape. Yeah, I hope they're all healthy, in good shape, their kids are in school, and they have good food, and they have money to maybe save some money to actually invest into their future, and that they manage to resist the pressure from the palm oil plantations. That's really our most important job there, giving these economic opportunities to people so that they can then help themselves.